Welcome to the Balancing Act podcast with SingerLewak. In this episode, we highlight how teamwork makes the dream work, showcasing what happens when decades of experience, deep client relationships, and true collaboration come together. The result, more than just compliance, you get connection, strategy, and real impact. Joining us are Kathy Lawson, Partner and Assurance and Advisory Regional Leader, Christopher Stone, Assurance and Advisory Director, and Jon Schubert, Tax Partner. They'll share stories from the world of audit and tax, unpack the real meaning behind A&A, and reveal what makes SingerLewak's approach truly different. From assurance to advisory, and from compliance to creative problem solving, this episode is all about how collaboration fuels success. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of the Balancing Act. Today we are here to discuss unlocking the audit code, because audit's such a small part of what we actually do. It is the core, obviously, of what the compliance is needed for our clients, but it isn't the end all be all. And really what we do for our clients 80% of the time is much more above and beyond what the audit is. So we call it assurance and advisory. The audit piece is a component of our assurance title in that assurance and advisory. And there's very numerous levels of attestation that we can offer for an assurance client. Our levels of assurance will match the type of CPA reports we issue. Audit, being one of those, is the highest level of assurance. It's the most depth in examination. We could do reviews, which is more of a moderate, medium level of assurance. And then there's compilations, which are the lowest level of assurance. And agreed upon procedures would be even lower than that, specifically honing in on key items that the client might need examination on, but maybe not the whole financial report as a whole. So depending on our client's needs, the end user of the reports, and how the report is going to be used, it doesn't necessarily have to be just audit. And it was a misnomer. Clients didn't understand all the depths of what we could offer.
That's right, Kathy. We have numerous CPA issued reports we can choose from that you just discussed. I really like the building inspector analogy I've heard in the past. A compilation is like when the architect draws up the blueprints based on his client's notes, but there's no site visit to kind of double check things. A review is when an inspector walks through the building, checks for any obvious issues, asks some questions, but doesn't open the walls. An audit is where an inspector checks the permits, tests the foundation, verifies the materials that are being used, and gives a formal report on the structural integrity of that building. Beyond the assurance world, which we've been discussing here already, we've got those advisory services that we offer as well, which really depend on the chapter of life cycle that our clients are in, whether that's a startup, whether they're a mature company, whether they're growing. We can offer, from an audit readiness to a due diligence project to quality of earnings work that we can help if one of our clients is looking to purchase another client or potentially be sold. Ultimately, I've worked on some due diligence projects, in the past for one of my clients. They're looking at purchasing a small competitor in their industry and ultimately looking to bring on additional products that they could offer, as well as customize some things as well that they were already offering. Our due diligence team worked closely with the client to, analyze the prospective businesses, ins and outs, looking at any potential add backs, testing sales transactions, anything that ultimately was important to our client to make sure was good. So, and it's worked out for both sides.
Great point, guys. And our tax teams work right alongside you guys with a similar set of compliance type services, whether it's assisting with the tax filings or tax planning or advising clients when they have exit strategies or transactions or wealth succession strategies. We're here to be kind of this one-stop shop for our clients. So we'll work hand in hand with the A&A team to ensure we're supporting our clients in every way possible. In our advisory group, we currently have a number of jobs around succession planning and how to transfer wealth with the most favorable tax outcomes. We had a recent client that wanted to sell their business in a stock sale, but they weren't going to sell the real estate that the corporation held. And so the client was asking us, the attorneys were asking us, and so we presented one possible solution to kind of the M&A attorneys to solve the problem and save a sizable amount of tax. And that's kind of the service we offer. The client has a need, and we try to fill that or come up with an answer or a solution for them based on all of our experience that we can add. A client who's spent kind of this lifetime of building their business now wants to exit. They've got a number of questions and they have a need of, people to go to, and that's where we come in. Abby, I've worked for a number of firms, accounting firms in my past. What can you tell me makes SingerLewak a little different? What's our secret sauce?
We're a family, and our clients feel a part of that family, whether it be internal or externally. We hope to solve their problems. We work as a team. We proverbially sit around that family table. We discuss all the options and what would and wouldn't work, and we troubleshoot it together. It really is different than, I've had family work at other firms before, and it really was historically looking back. This is a forward-looking, how do we solve it? How do we grow together? How do we move together? And it's just a different experience than anything you're going to have. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, first off, anyone can do compliance, right? Any firm can do compliance. And what we're hoping is ultimately that, our clients and prospective clients see the value of our size of firm, the technical knowledge, obviously, that we have as a given. Kathy and I both started our careers on the public company side of the world, and obviously that's evolved. What we like to do now is ultimately build that relationship with the client. We want to work with the client. We want to work obviously with our audit team, the tax team, and really make a difference for our clients. So, when they've got questions like what Jon just brought up for a client trying to sell, that we can really understand what they're looking for, how we can help them, not only their specific industry, but what are their needs, and ultimately what are not only the business needs, but also, on the personal side, what are they looking for their future. So we really try to make it an easy choice for our clients because of all these things that we can offer, and kind of our viewpoint and our experience that we've had in the past. We're truly a full service firm. We have different, a department of litigation support, software and cybersecurity specialists, bookkeepers, and even a concierge service available, to just name a few. Whatever our clients need from an accounting perspective, we have a solution to offer them. For example, one of my clients, they used our software specialists, also known as the SL Business Informatics team, to come up with a game plan for their software or their ERP conversion from a really outdated software that was no longer ultimately supported by that software company. The team, in this case, SL Business Informatics, they walked them through. They said, hey, this is what a conversion process entails, not only helping them just pick the right software, but also making sure they understood the process and how much time it was going to take from the management and the operations team to make sure that the conversion process was a success. Have you had any of these experiences, Jon, in your years here at the firm?
Absolutely. So I was part of a merger a couple of years ago where my firm merged into SingerLewak, and I found the biggest difference was the depth of the bench at Singer and the specialty offerings we have that my clients could benefit from. So I went from kind of having this compliance-based firm to kind of this robust firm now that has these different specialty groups. So, for example, we have a team that does R&D tax credits, and that's an area that's going to increase in prominence with the new Tax Act and the Section 174 write-off that we're now allowed to do in 1 year. It was kind of tempering people's appetite for taking these R&D credits. And we have a team that will do state and local nexus studies, and we have a team that will do international transfer pricing, and an international group that will analyze kind of inbound transactions. And so we have this depth of offerings that we can provide that will help our clients out.
Yeah,
Kathy?
honestly, Jon, you couldn't say it better, Jon, and I appreciate that. I mean, Singer has its core business lines, right? You have your audit, your tax, your valuation, your litigation support, business informatics, which is all things software solutions, and then business management that has its multiple layers and tiers. But with each one of those categories, as Jon said, There's all these sub tiers that help support our clients, and clients don't even realize it's available to them. It is so seamless in the service they receive that questions are asked and answered, and they just think Chris Stone answered all my questions, and that's just amazing. That's what they're supposed to feel and see. But the reality is, Chris within audit could go to the assurance and advisory side. He can go to transaction services. He can go to technical practice quality support. As Jon alluded to with tax, he has compliance tax. He has succession planning teams. He has estate planning teams. He has tag and analytic groups that help with transaction services and M&A and all these complex deals. And that goes down the list for every one of those categories. People don't realize when you come to Singer the depth and breadth you're going to get with that relationship person who's supporting you and how much is behind them and backs them up. When I started early on in my career, I had a not-for-profit, and you wouldn't think not-for-profits are complex. At first glance, you'd go, oh, simple, easier, not true. Smaller budget sometimes, maybe, but no, they have really complex issues. And this client service, this not-for-profit client serviced across the nation, had all different types of levels of sophistication rolling into their platform, and they had software issues. And our team came out there and worked with them, came up with a strategy that was affordable. They don't have an endless budget. They're not a public company and have all these big dollar amounts backing their name. They needed to be quick and concise. And our team sat with them and they came up with a game plan and they executed on that game plan. They spread it out over 3 years for budgetary constraints to make sure that it was practical in that situation. And it worked out great for them. A different client, one of my review clients, family-owned business contractor, very, very tight-knit accounting team. He had been working with closely held people, a family member on one side and a close family member of the friend of 40 years. He walked her down the aisle for her wedding. She threw the baby shower for his child, very close-knit family. Found out she'd been stealing from him for over 20 years, gambling issues and other problems. And so a review client, which wouldn't be in theory super complex, all of a sudden has this very emotional and very painful situation they're going through, the embarrassment, the emotion of betrayal. And now they're coming to us for a solution as their advisor. The person they trust when they thought the people they trusted most has now failed them. And we helped them through getting their forensic report. We helped them do the analysis. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you choose to see it, that report was successful in helping to put a family member in jail, and she served time for the fraud that she committed. And those are the types of issues we are with our clients. It could be family divorce issues, relationship issues, business issues for we're growing too fast, we're growing too slow, our minds are too much in the business and not on the business. And how are we going to strategically help them get to that next stage? I always joke, and people kind of roll their eyes of Kathy, keep it appropriate, but I say, if a small firm and a big firm had a love child, SingerLewak would be that love child. We are that perfect blend of technical expertise that you require from a larger firm because the transactions are complex and we need to have that technical knowledge and the depth and the breadth. On the flip side of that, we also have that balanced, personalized relationship, responsiveness, the family you expect from a smaller local firm. You don't want to be a number. You want to feel that your team is your team and they understand you and they're there for you. We grow up with our clients. We meet their needs from a very early stage as they're starting and they're growing to the very mature issues they hit at the full apex of their cycles and in their peaks. And then eventually through their exit, their transition process, do they choose to sell? Do they choose to succeed? Are we going to just close the doors? I mean, whatever the right answer is, every client has a very personal choice to make. We're going to go through the process with them. The firm combined has over 100 years of service. If you added us all up together across numerous industries and service offerings, we have teams with deep benches in the technology industry, construction, media and entertainment, life sciences, real estate, manufacturing and distribution, retail, franchise, transportation and logistics. The list honestly goes on. And our services aren't just that core audit that Jon and I talked about at the very beginning, and that Chris went into. It really is on that advisory side, the depth of how we can help them do life and do business How are we going to do it together? If we ask you what keeps you up at night, we want to solve that problem. And if we can solve it internally, awesome. And if it's external through our great relationships and our ROI and referral sources, then we're going to solve that question together. We're going to add value and support the growth plan, whatever the firm's plan is. Don't get me wrong. It sounds pretty dry at the beginning. A lot of accounting and numbers there. We do have a lot of fun while we're at it. And we get to experience all kinds of different things with our clients. It's not just dry, stereotypical accounting issues we deal with. We all have our share of stories that keep us laughing and give us storytelling at our events. I'm sure you have some fun and crazy stories you could share. Chris, can you think of any that keeps you chuckling at night?
I mean, there's so many to tell, obviously, but I think of the different places I've been able to kind of again experience and travel to, whether it's like Missouri, seeing one of our former clients that sold, but ultimately when we were out there, they built this large gun range where actually snipers would come and test. I lived in, I would joke, I lived in San Diego for about a quarter of my year back when we had a public company down in San Diego and a couple of other clients, and really got to know San Diego and obviously got to know the clients very well as well. So I don't know, I could go on and on. But John, do you have any specific ones that you like?
I've had my share of crazy stories and crazy client issues come up that you have to kind of figure out, take a step back and figure out how to handle. Had a client committing fraud, and the guy was terminally ill and really had nothing to lose, and decided he was going to go out with a bang, and had a inventory issue that we eventually discovered. Even though it was a review, we noticed that the inventory was being costed at different prices on different listings, and that was a fascinating story, and lots of wild feedback there, wild things going on. But I think I'll kick it off to Kathy. Kathy probably has some real life stories. They're way better than mine.
What differentiates us so much from some of the other firms are honestly the clients that we work with and the people that we work with. I get the blessing of working with my best friends. We've traveled together. We've taken vacations together. Our children have grown up together. And when we go out to the client and we're helping them and we're working together, they feel that synergy. And they quickly feel comfortable that they too can be a part of that synergy. We've had clients travel with us. We do life, and life together is combined. It is what it is. I think the secret of what makes SingerLewak's family work for our clients is that relationship, that it's not all about the technical. If it were, I don't think any of us would do this for very long. It's about the impact we're having with our clients and our staff, and that we do life in a successful way together. I can tell you something that keeps me going and keeps me in this industry. Everyone always goes, why do you do this? There's so many things you could do. You could go into private, you could go into consulting. Why do you choose to stay in public accounting? It has this very negative misconception of being a grind. And the truth is, for me, it's because I can do all those things you just mentioned where I'm at. I get to do public accounting, I get to do consulting, and I get to do private accounting work as the job and the project changes. And it makes a difference. I have a passion for recruiting. It's something that has always impacted me personally. I get to mentor young lives internally within the firm. Completely different than any other job option I have ever seen before, whether it be networking events, recruiting events. You get to give back. And for me, that keeps me going and it keeps me passionate about what I'm doing. And it works both internally with the firm members as well as externally with our clients. We get to work on a variety of industries, whether it be not-for-profits like Chris mentioned and investor-backed clients, closely held businesses. I've worked on public companies. We don't get pigeonholed, and our staff don't get pigeonholed in just one little industry that they hate and don't like. You get to work on a variety of things and find where your passion is. And once we know what your passion or your superpower is, grow it. You're going to be good at it if we can grow it. And that experience helps differentiate us from anybody else we work with. It's truly what we love and what we do. Chris, why do you do this? Why do you stay in this for as long as you
No,
have.
I was just going to add the fact that, the other side of that too is recruiting someone that we bring in, and getting to see them grow in the profession. And, obviously we've, seen people grow from staff to senior manager, et cetera. And just seeing that growth in people, is also a great way, to see, again, the fruits of the labor and, things you wouldn't necessarily be able to do, seeing someone from an intern or staff, all the way up to, a management position in every industry and everything that we would do.
Totally agree. John,
Yeah.
why do you do this? You've done it longer than all of us.
Well,
Why does your big six person stay doing this?
well, we aren't one dimensional, as you stated, and one of the things I found a way to kind of give back and enjoyed was teaching. So not only with the staff and folks that you hire, like I've hired interns that are now partners in other CPA firms, and enjoyed mentoring and coaching and training. But I picked up about 10 years ago, I picked up teaching a tax class in the master's program at Cal State Long Beach. And so I get young professionals that are either just starting their career or have a little bit of experience. And I get to kind of train them on the ways that I wish I had gotten those very first couple of years of my career. As I mentioned, I got into this a very long time ago. I started doing tax right after that movie The Firm came out with, and I wanted to be Tom Cruise and Gene Hackman, saving their clients money on their tax strategies and their tax advice. And one of the things I tell my students is make the world a better place because you were there. Train somebody, teach somebody, give them the tools so that they're going to come back to you and be grateful that they had that experience and grateful that they were with you. And that usually pays back because those same people want to give back. They want to reach out to you and help you out later with a referral, or want to help you out with some type of give back, and just help make things better. That's kind of my way, and that's kind of the Singer way too, is we work together and we help our clients.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And honestly, we all have so many things that we do both internally and externally, whether it be Chris coaches his kids and he could tell you all about that and what makes him who he is. And he loves craft beer. So if you get him talking, he'll tell you all about it. He finds those connections both internally with the people that we recruit as well as our clients. And it gives us common ground. I mean, the reality is there's three major components to an audit process. And, this whole thing has been talking about, audit and unlocking the audit code. And what is that teamwork and how does that differentiate itself? You have the technical skill sets. Chris said it best a few minutes ago. The technical should be given. When you're looking at a firm, interview them. If the technical is not there, move on quickly. You don't need a generalist. That really is not truly what you need. From the smallest of clients to the largest of clients, they need to have a certain basic technical breadth. That's a given. And I hope we all have that. The second is going to be that relationship. And that's what we're talking about here, is that unity internally and externally. I don't want to give my trial balance to the auditor so they can go do my accounting work. And then I have to give it again to the review team and the audit team. And then I'm going to give it again to the tax team. No, they should be working together. One united team working and listening to your needs at one time, collaborating. And that's what we honestly do. And that leads to the third piece, which is that forward thinking. What is the forward thinking piece of what we do? It's great as an auditor, I can say this, that we're always looking in the rear view mirror. Well, what happened last year is cute, but it's not relevant to my growth plan outside of it was a blip in time that we need to know about. Now let's move forward. How are we growing? So let's look at the historicals. Let's figure out what the plans are and let's grow. To me, the key to a successful audit is the right team. And with Singer, I think that's it. Honestly, that's with anything in life. Your partner is everything. Who is your partner? That is in your personal life going to carry you, in school going to carry you. It's no different with an audit practice. Whether it be your audit work, your tax work, your transactional work, you have to have the right partner. When you love what you do and you do it with the right people, the rest kind of fall into place. Our team is technically qualified. They're very smart people, but there's so much more to them than just that. With that said, the secret that unlocks the quote unquote audit code to us is that relationship. In other podcasts, you'll hear about our planning, our communication, how to prepare for an audit that makes it more successful, our tax services, our international tax practice, not-for-profit practice. You're going to hear about all kinds of different services. And for here, I hope we shared a little bit with you about the teamwork and the relationship and what sets Singer apart from those other firms. We thank you for listening, and until next time.
That wraps up this episode of The Balancing Act. SL Audit, teamwork makes the dream work. It's not just about crunching numbers, it's about building relationships, solving problems, and growing together. Whether it's navigating complex transactions, planning for succession, or supporting clients through software transitions, the depth and diversity of services at SingerLewak make a real difference. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe, share, and stay tuned for our September episode where we focus on state and local government, accelerating the preparation of financial statements. Until next time, keep balancing what matters.